Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and start. I appreciate all of you coming. You having no idea who I am or what I represent. But Denny, hopefully you can see my screen okay and see me. Is that correct? Give me a thumbs up, Den, so I can. All right, perfect. All right, so this is a very big agenda. And so it's going to be more of a supplying information than it is going to be any kind of training. So please realize that. But I will talk about each one of these things. And for those of you who can stick around to the end, you'll be eligible to win some prizes that I'm able to give away from Texas Instruments. So please hang in. Okay. This is the website where all the information will be, and that website will be available throughout. Okay, but it's bit.ly. I'm thinking Columbus, March 2022. And it's all lowercase. It is case sensitive. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Please, if there's something that really is important, please unmute yourself and ask me. Okay, if you and I will trust you think it's important. Or if you put something in the chat, I'll try to check that from time to time as well. So, so my name is Tom Reardon. I am originally from the Youngstown area, and as I was telling Denny, who I've known for many years, we lived our entire lives in Youngstown up until September, and we've moved to Columbus to be near to 2 of our children and 4 of our grandchildren. And being in the same house for 44 years was kind of a shock to move, but we love it. We now live down the street from Centennial High School near Upper Arlington, but in Columbus City. So a little bit, just a very quick background on me, because this is more about the math than it is about me. Hopefully some of you have heard of Austintown Fitch High School. And it's an urban district right outside of Youngstown, right across the border. I was there 35 years and department chair for the last 16 of them. Youngstown State University, I taught part-time there for 40 years. Okay, I can't believe it. I've been doing math education technology professional development for 27 years, since 1995. Been to 49 states, 8 countries since then. And for the last 13 years, I've been working as a senior math advisor in product development for Texas Instruments. So if you add all those up, I should probably be dead. But I will tell you those are concurrent, not consecutive years. Okay, a lot of things overlapped. I always start off with a quote or two. So these are 2 of my more favorite ones. It's better to know how to learn than to just know. And if we were live, then I would tell you, I would ask you to guess who you think it is. But unfortunately, when I say live, I should say in person. We are live. I was just working with a district in Cleveland, and this was and nobody guessed it. Okay, they thought like Einstein and so on. If it would have rhymed, maybe you would have guessed Dr. Seuss, but I do like that quote. Okay, our students don't think that way, but we do think that way. And this one is another one that's been my mantra for the last 22 years. I'm convinced that children learn in more ways than I know how to teach. I have not given up. I just keep looking for different ways. This is from an article called Never Say Anything a Kid Can Say from the NCTM math teacher, middle school teacher in April 2000. All right, so with that, I thought we'd start off with a couple ACT sample questions, because there is going to be an ACT professional development in August that I'll be talking about in a little bit. And I have on the website about 30 sample questions with the solutions that if you want to share them, use them with your students, by all means do so. I'm only giving you enough time to think about them, maybe not to completely finish them, because I'm just going to show you different ways of maybe having your students think about them. So let's go ahead and start with this one. This is number 58. Most of these are from 2020 and 2021, I think. So let me give you about 30 seconds to think about how you hope your students would do that while I check the chat. Go ahead, you got 30 seconds. Okay, 5 seconds. Just get an idea of what you would do. Okay, while you were doing that, I did put into the chat the website, the bit.ly link to the website with all the information. Wait till the end there. Okay, I think a couple of you need to mute, if you wouldn't mind muting. If you do want to unmute, do so to talk, but a couple of you do need to mute. Okay, so here's one. So this is the way I would hope my students would do this. Okay, I would think they would do this by hand, where say, well, in order for no real solution, discriminant would have to be negative or less than 0. So substituting b squared minus 4 times a times c, when is that less than 0? And then I have an inequality quadratic inequality, factor it, find the zeros, find where it's positive and negative. And you can see right here, it's going to be negative between -2 and 2. So the answer is K. That would be one way to do it. However, another way to do this, and remember, you can use a calculator, a graphing calculator on all of the tests. In fact, let me even bring this up. Okay, here. So I could actually graph when is, instead of b squared, say when is x squared minus 4 less than 0. So x squared minus 4. And then I'll do second math, which is test, where all the inequalities live. And when is that less than 0? Okay. And then when I graph that, you can see that it is the numbers between -2 and 2, because what it's doing is when something is true, it graphs, it has a value 1, and when it's false, it has a value 0. So that's why, again, that would be a way of doing that one. Okay, so again, I would hope my students could do this by hand, but since they can use the calculator, by all means, I would want them to do so. All right. All right, so let me give you another question here. Let me give you about 30 seconds. This one you probably could do in 30 seconds, okay? But just to give you an idea of what some of the current questions look like. So go ahead, give it your best shot, and then I'll give you a couple of different ways. Okay, 5 seconds, 5 seconds. And I know some of you need more time. Just don't get mad. I just want to give you an idea of how you would do this. All right, so for this one here, again, I really hope my students could do this by hand. Here they would have to multiply by the conjugate of the denominator over itself, which is really multiplying by 1. I used to call it realizing the denominator instead of rationalizing the denominator. And so if you do all the mathematics and using I squared as -1, you end up with an answer of E, okay, which is fairly straightforward, okay. But one of the things that amazes me is that the makers of the test allow you to use a calculator on this. And this could be easily done on a calculator without knowing the mathematics. And so if your students have one, I would strongly suggest them go ahead and just put a rational expression, get a fraction template, and type 2 plus 3. And the imaginary is second decimal point. And then the denominator 1 minus 2 second I. And there's the answer. I mean, right there. So it shocks me that they allow this to happen, but this is why if your students have these, you might want to tell them this is a way of making sure you get that, because even though I want my students to do the mathematics, I want them to do well in this test because of many reasons, money, getting into the school, whatever. Okay. So again, so this would be an alternate way to do that. So let me just stop for a second. Let me check the chat. Nothing in the chat. Any questions or comments so far? Anything at all? Okay, I have a lot to share with you that hopefully you can find at least one thing you can use. All right, this is number 17, okay, from I think 2020, I forget what month. This one, again, just to get you a start on this, just to get a start on this, I'm going to give you 30 seconds there.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Well, that's why I asked you to call me to help you. To be your better other half and always make you look the best.
Where it goes?
I would like to second Evan's comment in the chat. Could the host please mute everyone so we don't hear the background noise?
Yes, please.
You would find the mute all button if you hit participants on the menu on the bottom. When you do that, you'll see invite, you'll see mutiny, you'll see mute all.
Thank you. I've never had to do that before, so thank you. All right, so for this one here, sorry about for all that, but I'm glad we got that taken care of because that can be annoying. All right, so for this one here, the algebra is a little bit tricky. I mean, you could do this by guess and check and substitution, but I did this algebraically and said if X is the number of minimum number of free throws, okay, then I'm going to add that to each the 46 and then also the 60. And when we simplify that, that should be 80% or 4/5. And so we could go ahead and solve like we would a proportion and come up with X equals 10, okay? But also, we could have that equation, again, if you're using a calculator, there is a place that you can use what's called the, under math, the numeric solver, okay? And here I've already kind of typed it in already where I have the left expression 1, and expression 2.8. And then once I type that, I'll hit graph and say, okay. And I do need to give it a number as a seed to solve. So I'm gonna say maybe X equals 1 and then press graph to solve. And I'm getting X is 10 point whatever. And it's not exactly 10 because it's using an algorithm, something like Euclid's method or something like that to do this. So again, a couple different ways to solve this problem. When I worked with students in a couple weeks ago, they also just did it by guess and check, which is okay too, since there are only 5 answers. So. Okay, so are these directions typed? So question in the chat, are these, because these are new to you, I do have a tips and tricks website that has about 17 or 18 for the 84 and about 10 for the Inspire. So so yes, I do.
And that's all linked to the bit.ly.
Yeah. Let me show you that at the end, okay? But I'll show you.
Okay, thank you.
So yes, thank you for asking though. Great. Okay. Just out of curiosity, if you wouldn't mind right now, I'd like you to do this. If you're an 84 user, if you would type in an 84 in the chat, and if you're an Inspire user, could you type in an N in the chat? Okay. So not asking you to do too much work, just an 84 or an N for Inspire. Okay. And we got 50 some people. So right now I got 10 answers. Let's be a little bit more un-American and vote more. Okay. Let's vote a little bit more so I can kind of get an idea of where you guys are coming from. Okay. So thank you for responding. Okay, so mostly 84. a few Inspires, a few Desmos. Okay, thank you for that. All right, so moving on, like for ACT, number 51. Here's a number 51 from, I don't know where it was, but you're given the graph of a function. Which one is the graph of this right here? So for us, this should be a quick one. For our students, maybe not so much. So let me give you about 20 seconds to look at that. And it's a little tough because maybe you might be able to see the screen as well as you would like to. And I apologize for that. So here, I'm hoping students realize that when it's x minus 3 inside the function, it's a shift left and right, in this case to the right. And when it's outside the function, it's shifted up vertically 2, okay? And so this goes to the right 3 and up 2, so it ends there. And so E would be the correct answer, okay? I also did this on the TI-84, and you could also do it on the Nspire, where I actually created that function, okay? And then did that in blue, and then in green, graphed, instead of f of that, y1 of that, x minus 3 plus the quantity x minus 3 plus 2. And then you could actually see that graph. So here was the original in blue. Here's the answer in green, which of course matches E. Now, again, I would not suggest doing that on the test, but again, I like to use the calculator as a teaching and learning tool, not just as a test taking tool. So just bringing that out. All right, so one of the reasons I'm telling you that is for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been, Texas Instruments has asked me to become an expert on the ACT and SAT math parts. And I'm not saying I'm a perfect expert, but I've gotten a lot better. I've probably taken at least 10 to 12 ACT and 10 to 12 SAT tests in the last few years. And I've created about a week's worth of professional development for this. And so we're going to be offering a 2-day course on using the 84 on the ACT at Centennial High School. There'll be a link on getting more information and how to register for that on the website that I created for you. I'm also hoping that if we get enough people to sign up, and some people say they'd rather do Nspire, that I could get another instructor and have both being done. But even if you can't, even if you are Nspire, there's enough ACT materials there you can use. As far as the cost goes, it is $300 for the 2 days, okay? And not to me, but to Texas Instruments. If you do that, you get a free brand new graphing calculator. And you also get the emulator software, which is what I'm using right now, okay, which is about a $300 value. They're basically trading that off, I guess. You also get free registration to Texas Instruments Teachers Teaching with Technology International Conference, which is virtual in July. That's automatically a freebie to get into that as well. And that's usually excellent. It's usually in person, but because of COVID, they stayed away from that this year. Every 4 educators from a district you paid, you get a 5th one that's free. So I talked to Steve Heiner about that, and he said that you could, your union has, or your association has ways of getting monies for that, or maybe your principal. I'm not sure how that works, but if you have questions, let me know, okay? All right, so switching gears on that from ACT, one of the other things I mentioned I wanted to do was look at math modeling with climate change data. A few years ago, I applied to go to Al Gore's climate change conference, and it was in Los Angeles for 3 days. And if you got accepted, you had to pay for everything, all your planes and meals and so on, but the conference was free. And I thought there'd be like 100 people there. It turned out there were 2,400 people there. I was there to collect data so that students could mathematically model this. I've got his PowerPoint slides, some 700 slides or something like that. And this is one of them. And I thought this was just a great math problem. So I created an activity about this, which I will share with you. And I have it for both the 84 and the Inspire. Okay. And if you are using just Desmos, the information is, the data is available for you for that as well. Okay. So some of the questions that I asked that we're not going to talk about here, I'm going to just get to the nuts and bolts, just talk about what is measured on the horizontal axis, what's measured in the vertical axis. What's measured here is gigatons of ice mass. Okay. Gigatons, which is huge. I think it's 10 to the 9th in tons, if I'm not mistaken. And looking at the graph, you can see that it's declining for sure. Okay, as the years go by, the number of the gigatons of ice is going down. And the reason it fluctuates, probably some of you figured out, is because of seasons. Okay, there are, getting warmer and colder and so on. Okay, so I would ask the students, what kind of equations could we use to model this data? And there's really not one you could do, but two come to mind. One is we could use a linear to kind of go through the average through the middle of this to kind of see what's going on, which we will. Another one is you could say it's almost a sinusoid, but it's what's called a degenerate sinusoid. And we'll do that as an option at the end too. So you go ahead and get this data in. And so what I did was I created a program that you'll have access to that has all this data. You run the program and the data is automatically typed into your calculator. So the program is called Greenland Ice, Greenland 20, because 2020, because I updated it in 2020. So I run this and it says it automatically puts the data into lists, enter to continue, what's there. And when you go to the lists, you can see that at year 2.29, which is really 2022, I'm sorry, 2002 and 29 hundredths of a year into that year. That's how the data was, okay? And we're calling that 0, meaning that's where there was no change in the ice, okay? And then at 2.62, we had already lost 242 gigatons, okay? So you can see how it's going down and so on. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and set up a stat plot. Okay, so I'll turn on a stat plot, and I'd like it to be more of a curve instead of just the dots. And I also stored the window in my Zoom memory. Some of you may not be aware, but the calculator has a place where you can store your favorite window or a window temporarily. And so I did this. So I'm going to go ahead and Zoom recall the window. And so now instead of having that standard window like I did before, I've got the data automatically plotted, which saves a lot of time, okay? And so we're going to go ahead and try to find an equation that models this data. And so it says that Inspire has been disallowed. Is that changed? Yes, the Inspire is allowed. It's always been allowed. It's the CAS version that is not, that was temporary, will always be disallowed on the ACT, but it's always been allowed on the SAT. And so there. So let me go back. So I'd like to come up with a linear equation here. And we're so tempted to just do the linear regression on the calculator. I think it's a really good idea to have the students do a guess and check. Try to come up with a line that kind of passes through the middle of those points by guess and check. Some kids will pick, maybe the ordered pairs and find the slope and then find the y-intercept. Some will just do it by guess and check. However, however they want to do it is fine with me, okay? But I do want them to do that so they start to get a feel for what's the y-intercept mean, what's the slope mean, and so on. And so let me get rid of that one. And the equation I'm going to go with is 700 minus 265x, and that came from doing some, calculations and guess and check. So let me go ahead and graph that. And hopefully you would agree that that kind of does go through that data in the middle pretty well. Okay, it's going to miss some places, but not perfect. Okay. And then after that, I would like them to go ahead and use the regression equation on their calculator to calculate it, okay? And I have already done that. Well, let me even do it here. Let me just go ahead and do it again. So I'll replace this one with the, and by the way, all the step-by-steps on how to do this are in the teacher notes for these. So I know I'm going quickly, but you will be able to have these teacher notes as well as the student PDF. So I'd like to store this in, let's say, Y1, and we'll go ahead and calculate that. And we got a pretty good R squared, okay, pretty close to 1. And we can see that that graph is pretty good too, okay. Probably a little better than the one that I had, but mine wasn't too bad. I'll go with that. So also in the activity I created, these two questions to me are the heart and soul of this activity. I love the fact that we have a data that means something, that's important data, okay? But the ACT and SAT test makers love to ask questions. What does the slope mean in this problem situation? What does the y-intercept mean in this problem situation? Okay, so here, if we go back to this, let me just give you a few seconds to think about that, because it's not a real obvious answer to most people. So go ahead and take about 30 seconds and think about what does the slope mean and what does the y-intercept mean in this problem. So think about that before I give that away. All right, so the slope here, the slope is negative, which means it's what's happening is decreasing, and it's pretty much change in y over change in x, which is it's decreasing 274 gigatons every year. Okay, you can kind of read that right from here, okay, because the ice is melting. The y-intercept is a little bit trickier here. Remember, the y-intercept is at time 0. And so we were using 2 for the year 2002. So the year 0 is the year 2000. Okay. So the y-intercept is 835. And that's the amount of ice that would have been there at time 0, which would be year 0, January 1st, 2000. And there were 835 more gigatons of ice than there were when we started, which was about April 16th, 2002. Okay. And again, lots of good mathematics in this activity, but it also deals with mathematical modeling and dealing with ACT and SAT type questions. So as an option, and this was kind of difficult, but I did come up with an equation. How could we actually model the actual curve, okay, that's not linear? I mean, how could we actually do this as a sine curve, okay? So for this one, let me just kind of, I did do this, so let me turn this one off. And by using some things about period and so on, I came up with this equation to model the up and down. Okay, so let me just graph that. But that's as if it wasn't decreasing. So what I did was I took Y1 and Y4 and I added those two. And look what happened and Y1 is the linear, Y4 is the sine, okay? And when you add them, I mean, I know it's not perfect, but doggone pretty close, okay? So again, depending upon whether or not your students can handle that, that's up to you. But my trig kids in pre-calculus would get that somewhat. So there's my work with that. All right, so I will point out that since I've gone to Al Gore's training. I do go to schools and I speak at conferences and different things like that to students and teachers about climate change. I show some of Al Gore's PowerPoint slides. I'll do a 50 to 60 minute presentation. It's free. It's nothing to do with Texas Instruments. It has nothing to do with anything but just me volunteering to do that. Okay, so if you're interested, my email address is also on the website. Okay, it's also there. I just finished doing 10 weeks at Centennial High School. Every Tuesday, we would meet for 90 minutes. I'd help students prepare for the ACT because I know you guys just took that or are going to be taking that this week. So, I've been trying to give back to the community in my old age. All right, next thing on here is a website that has transformational graphing. It's a video series called Families of Functions. It's free, okay? So again, teachers love free, I understand that. It has over 250 videos and 450 examples, okay? You only use what you need. So if you just use one, we're considering that a success. If you use all of them, that's wow, okay? Nice about this is students work at their own pace. It's not tied to any graphing technology. It's not an 84. It's not Desmos. It's not Inspire. It's being able to teach this by hand. Okay, making sure students can graph these things by hand. To me, the essential part is I would hope all of you would at least download and view the quick reference guide, which I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, and pass that along to colleagues and students. Even though there's a link to that on the website there, this is the link that will take you right to that, okay, right to this one here, but suggest not going there now because I'll explain it first. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you the website. So the website for this is right here, okay, and lots of information. These are all of the parent functions that are listed there, okay. Hopefully we've got most of yours covered, and each of those have about 14 different examples of transformations using combining more than one transformation, okay? But the key part is this quick reference guide right here. So if you click here, it'll ask you to download and view this. So I already did it. So again, this is to me the essential part if you're interested in this at all. This is a list just of the parent functions on the first page. The second page has an explanation of how to graph each of the different transformations, vertical shifts, horizontal dilations, and so on, okay? You'll notice each of them have 2 links, but there's only one video. The YouTube link is hard to remember. The bit.ly link, follow a pattern if you're interested in that. So if you can't copy and paste the link, you can just type them and they're easy to remember. So here are the linear relations and slope. And so as a teacher, my suggestion would be give your students this page if you're teaching, graphing linear functions or relations, and say, if there are any here that you can't do, play this video. Okay, and it'll walk you through it. And it'll tell you, this is the example that's thoroughly explained, and this is the now you try one, okay, on your own. There's also videos explaining slope. There's 6 different videos on explaining slope. If you're interested in that, that's how I taught slope for many, many years, and hopefully that would help your students as well. So here's an example of the squaring function, okay, and the different transformations. C means the combinations. A is lower level, medium level, high level, okay, absolute value function, and so on. That this was my project during COVID because teachers were having to create their own videos. And so I have over 500 hours in developing this. TI is making it available for free for anybody who wants to use it. So if you hear my voice in it, don't be surprised, okay? And we also did greatest integer, we also sine and cosine, but we also did a generic piecewise function, okay? Because of the ACT and SAT, they create their own functions to kind of give everybody on the same playing field. Okay. So any questions about families of functions? Okay. Thank you for hanging in there today. All right, so one of the things I want to find out from you is, while I was in the Youngstown area my entire life, I went to Youngstown City Schools, taught in an urban district at Austintown Fitch. I consider myself a blue-collar, working class math teacher, okay? So I'm considering what I did at Youngstown area. Started this in the late 90s and did it for 20-some years. We'd meet once or twice a year. I would get a sponsor to supply pizza and cookies and water or drinks of some sort, a non-alcoholic, of course. And and want to know if I could continue that here. Okay. And so that's, I'm asking you your opinions, and so it'd be open to every high school math teacher in the Columbus area. Okay. It would be free. Okay. The refreshments would be supplied. Right now I've got Texas Instruments backing me on this one. So, and I'd like to have a social time and also professional presentations. The first one, I would probably be the presenter because I don't have any money to pay anybody. And the way this came about was I went back to my mentor at Youngstown State, and I said, what would you like your students to be able to do in their calculus? And he told me, he said, the next time you math teachers get together, you ought to talk about this. And I said, when do you think we do this? And this, of course, was before internet and Zoom and so on. And so I decided to create this math forum, and we would have anywhere from 25 to 75 teachers show up after school on a Tuesday or Wednesday. We'd have about 30 minutes. We'd have, pizza and cookies. And then I would do like a 60 to 90 minute presentation. People stayed as long as they wanted to stay. I usually can get I also get Texas Instruments to donate some prizes, gift certificate, gift cards, maybe some software, so on. The time and date is to be decided, and I kind of use your help on this. So any ideas you have for that and help to promote it, I would appreciate it. That would be great. So again, prizes. So what I'm wondering is, do you have any how many of you, and I'm not putting you on the spot because I don't know who you are, okay, but how many of you would be interested in doing that? Just type in a Y or an N. Y for yes, you'd be interested in doing that, or you think it's a good idea. And if you don't, and I'm okay with that, okay, I'm okay with that, but just the idea, okay. So again, just so I appreciate your contributing to that. Okay. Does anybody see anything wrong with any of these dates? Not for you personally, but like, is it, parent teacher conferences, spring break somewhere? Tuesdays are bad because we always have this. If so, just put that in the chat and I'll try to do that. Okay. But Steve Heiner said he would help me publicize that. I also have some contacts that would help me publicize it, but I'd also would need you to help me to do this. So Chris Bolognese, I do know Chris. Okay. So yeah, maybe with his, thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate that. If we were meeting in person, I would give you a Pez. I usually gave Pez out for good ideas. So notice the snowman still for the Pez. So thank you for your for that. Appreciate it. All right, we only have about 12 minutes left. I still got a lot of things, just some things to show you. Okay, so the TI-Nspire tips and tricks show the website. I'll show you this first. So I did this because this is probably my best received talk when I do talks nationally. People seem to like this the best because they'll say, oh, I've been using the 84 20 years, and they find out they only knew about 2 or 3 of these things. Okay. So I created a PDF and then also a video, and the PDF is a step-by-step on how to do these things. The video is the same thing, me just walking through, okay, which you can pause if you need to do so. But some of the things I like is how you can get the quadratic formula in your calculator in less than a minute. Okay. Store your favorite window settings like I did before, see the graph and table simultaneously and be able to graph and trace and see where it is in the table, also on the graph. So a lot of cool things here on that. Okay. So you have the old access to that website. For you Inspire users, I don't have as many and I don't have as videos, but I do have them in step-by-steps. So any of these things that you'd be interested in, you've got a link to that. So the website again is that, okay, it's bit.ly Columbus, March 2022, again, all lowercase. And so I also decided to add these. when I woke up this morning, I thought, hey, we're close to Pi Day, March Madness, St. Patrick's Day. Those are coming up. Maybe this would be something people would be interested in. So I created activities over the years on this. And so let me show you those before we get to the prizes. So let me go back to the website. So if you're interested in Pi Day activities, this is the link to the website. I have a video, Why Pi, the video that's 4 minutes long. That's up to you. I have an Inspire activity for it, an 84 activity for it, some Pi jokes and puns. Okay. And this to tell you how old it is. I remember Aaron Kraft, who played for Ohio State, he recites Pi to 63 digits. Okay. And as you know, this is Albert's birthday. Okay. March 14th is also Albert's birthday. So you've got that. March Madness, I created this before they went to 68 teams. The 4 teams are like they have that playoff, and then the 64. I don't want to change it only because the beauty of this activity is in the fact that it's a great exponential activity. Okay. And I guess I could shift it up and down, but prefer not to get into sigma notation, and you do as much or as little as you want. 84 or Inspire. Okay, they're on the March Madness. And St. Patrick's Day, if you would like to be able to graph this on Inspire or be able to graph it on the TI-84 CE, or a non-color would be in grayscale there. So we have that. Okay, so those are available to you at the website. And so this is the website that I keep talking about. Okay, and let me just run back through it again before we do the prizes. And we're doing really well on time. So I even have time for questions. This is my email address. Email me anytime. Okay. My job is to, work with teachers and help them, as best I can. So here's the link to the Pi Days. Click there and it takes you to that. Okay. Here, the March Madness, click there. It takes you to this blog right here that has this information with downloads to be able to get those PDFs. Okay. And if you click on the St. Patrick's Day, it takes you to this blog with also links to the 84 and Inspire and so on, all done for you. Okay. This is the ACT 2-day fun shop. I used to people call them workshops. I preferred fun shop. That's the only reason for that. And the people at Centennial have been kind enough to help me do that. Okay. Krista and Sherry there have been great. Okay. And so is the principal there. So for more information, if you click here, it'll take you to give you the overview, the pricing, and then who you can contact and how to register. Okay. So again, please talk to your principal. And if you're not sure about how to get it funded by your association, Steve gave me this link. So if you go to this link, they'll explain on how to do that. This is in August, so it's kind of a different time, but you can join, you can register now and count it towards this year. So you don't have to worry about next year's funding. Here is an 11-page PDF that I did for a school district in districts in northern Arizona. And these are where I got some of the problems I showed you. So these are actual ACT questions. ACT allows us to use them. SAT does not. And so these are lists that you could work with your students. We usually try to encourage 1 per day. And then if you want, I also have the PDF of the solutions to those, along with a presentation that I did. I hope you don't mind that I am regifting or redoing my talk to that district in northern Arizona. But in fact, this is one of my favorite parts right here is how to use a calculator, 10 different ways to use the calculator. But then I go through and show you how to do these using the calculator or by hand or both. Okay, so if you're interested in those ACT questions, those are available to you. What else have we got? Climate change. If you click here, it takes you to the climate change activity. And here's the program on the 84. And this is the program. This is the student PDF, the teacher PDF. You can download them all as one zip folder and unzip it. I have the similar one for Inspire. Again, this is just a reminder. We're hoping to have the math forum, we called it, okay, for the Columbus area math teachers, and you'll be hearing about that. I'd hope you help promote that. Just tell people. You don't have to kind of break their arm to go, but do that. What you would have is similar to what I did today, except a little bit more hands-on, okay, not so much just sitting there. I like to get people involved. This is the link to the Families of Function, my big project, and I hope you can use it or your students can use it. And again, this is the essential part, this quick reference guide. The tips and tricks are here, tips and tricks are here. And I think that pretty much shows you what's on the website there. Okay, so let me see if there's anything in the chat, anything, anybody have a question? Any questions before I close this off? The bit.ly does not work. Oh, that's not going to be good. Let's make sure we have that correctly. So it's bit.ly/C, the letter OLMAR, and the numbers 2022. Again, it is case sensitive. So that person, EM, or AA rather, could you just let me know if you tried it again and if it worked? That would be bad if it doesn't. Now, the only
It
time
works for me, so I think it is working.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sometimes some schools might block bit.lys because they can be bit.lys for bad places. Okay. Okay. So here. So let me talk about.
I think it was two different ones, because the one I cut and pasted earlier, it said math instead of MAR. I don't know what I copied and pasted that off one of your screens, so that might be what the other person was just trying to go to.
Yeah, that could have been my mistake. Sorry about that. So thank you. All right, so let me just talk about the prizes. Okay, to eligible, you're going to have to email me really quickly. Okay, so this is what I want you to do is in the description of the email, you'll type math forums, so I know that this is coming from somebody who was at this particular talk, and if you would like an 84 SmartView emulator software, which I was using, which is about $150 value, type 84. And that can be in the body of the letter, or it can be next to Math Forum. If you're an Inspire user and you'd like the new TI-Nspire premium software, just type Inspire instead of 84. Okay. And again, that could be in the body of the letter, whatever. If you have any comments about what you saw today, I would love to hear them, pro or con. Okay. I'm always trying to make things apply better. So my email is tom@tomreardon.com. And again, what I'll do is I'm going to give away 6 of these, like 10%. There's about almost 60 people participating, which is great. So while you're typing that in, I will, once we're done, do a see how many people responded. And then I will do random number generators and get 6 numbers out of, let's say, if 30 of you reply, I'll say, give me 6 numbers out of 1 to 30, and I'll just go by in order they came. So truly random, truly randomized. Okay. So while we're waiting to do that, again, not in the chat. Don't do anything that's in the chat, because I won't be able to respond in the chat. This has to be an email. So I have to be able to email you the link to the lifetime license. So nothing in the chat. It's got to be an email. Questions, go ahead and unmute yourselves if you want to ask me a question, or if you have one in the chat. Okay, so all right, 96 seconds is getting close to being completed here. All right, so thank you for coming. I'll stick around in case you have anything you want to say. If not, enjoy the rest of your day. I appreciate what you do. I know classroom is much more difficult than when I was in it a couple years ago, but good luck to you. And again, thanks for showing up. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to close this out.